Hi folks, welcome along. I thought it would be a good idea to put a little video together on how I've taken the various bits and bobs of the sim rig and tuned it for the most realistic experience that I can put together. Anyway, having never actually driven a Lotus 49 in real life, I've never been lucky enough to do that. But yeah, how I've tuned the rig to give me what I feel to be a realistic experience for this amazing Formula One car from 1967. So yeah, I'll just take you through the various settings. I'll put a link up in the top right of the video for whenever we talk about something that I've done a little installation video on. You can check out that as part of a Building My Virtual Race Car video series that we did. I'll stick the links in the description as well. So yeah, let's get started. So first off is the steering wheel itself, the thing that I'm looking at on track, and yeah, this beautiful Lotus 49 replica steering wheel from 3D Wrap in Italy, and yeah, hand stitched leather, got a nice solid feel in hand, and yeah, it just gives you that perfect little final connection to the car. It really feels like you're handling something that is real, because it is the right size, it's the right weight, it's the right materials, etc. For the actual car. So yeah, very happy with that. So obviously that connects to the SimuCube 2 Ultimate that we have, the Wheelbase, and let's have a look at some of the settings in that. So this is our TrueDrive software. Again, the wheel is represented on screen there in TrueDrive. Obviously we enable high torque mode when we're actually driving. I've not played about with the online paddock yet or uploaded anything yet. I just have a few offline profiles. You'll see I've got two here, if you can read it, the Lotus 49 Monza and the Lotus 49. The reason I've got a separate Monza profile is that, as you'll know if you're into sim racing at all, Monza tends to be a bit of a unique case as far as force feedback goes. The wheel tends to vibrate a lot in the straights. I think the reason they give for it is that obviously you don't have that sensation of physical speed in the sim as you would in real life, so the way they try and communicate it to you is through vibration of the steering wheel, but it tends to mean that when you have a force feedback setting that you're happy with on other circuits, you go to Monza and it just vibrates to hell. So it's not much fun. Anyway, so most time we'll be using the non-Monza setting, so I'll have a quick into it and show you what I've got. Again, this is what I've set to give me what I feel like a realistic feedback settings. If obviously it's highly subjective. So yeah, this is what I have. So at the moment I have the total overall strength set at 50%. So the highest strength I'll ever feel, highest forces I'll ever get through here are 15.7 newton meters. That's quite a whack. I mean, and it's only 50% on the Ultimate, obviously, because it has such a massive range. But that is enough that if I hit a curb or go into a dip or something, or go into a steep bit of circuit and a lot of camber on it, you really get a big, you've got to wrestle the car, which I think is appropriate. These things have massive, big, slick tyres. There's no power steering on them. Big, not heavy as such, but just big car to have a lot of mechanical grip there. So yeah, that really gives me that kind of big feel for hitting things, and you get the shock through the steering wheel. To go in hand with that, you've got this down here, the static force reduction. So that reduces what they call static forces, which is like your constant steering forces and resistance to steering, a little bit, so that you don't have. It's difficult to describe, but you want the overall strength to be the big strength you feel when you hit something or you go over a rumble strip or something. You want that thump in the steering wheel, but you don't necessarily want all that force all the time, which is where you use the static force reduction. So I've got that at 10%, which will just take the edge off some of the forces, and that's kind of giving me a nice balance that it feels like I'm having to drive the car. It's not an easy thing to steer by any stretch of the imagination. So that's basically where the forces are. A lot of these damping settings and things, I mean, I'm not going to go into how all these things affect the sim or how the feeling goes. There's lots of other videos on YouTube with people much more knowledgeable than me who explain all that. The only other thing I've really set here properly is the steering range, which looks a bit random at first sight. It's 413 degrees. But the reason I came to that is that I went into the sim, into iRacing, and just turned the steering wheel until the wheel stopped turning on the sim. and with a bit of trial and error, it turned up at 413 degrees. So that just means that I've got a realistic steering angle here, that when I turn, it stops when it gets to 430 degrees, which is exactly when it stops in the sim. And I've got the bump stop feel set to hard as well. Again, to me, that just feels like I'm hitting a nice bump stop at the end of the steering rack. It gives me a nice feel through the steering wheel. So, yeah, again, it's hard to drive. It's not an easy thing to drift around corners and things, but it's a Formula One car from 1967, so it should be hard to drive. So, anyway, that's that. Next up, let's look at the pedals. So here we have the Heusinkveld Smart Control window for our Heusinkveld Ultimate Plus pedal set. You can see there's a little bit of a curve on the clutch here, which I've kind of tuned a little bit with a sim to give me a wider bite point, if you like, and to make it feel, because obviously in the clutch itself you've got that push through the pressure plate point, so trying to get that to tie up with where the actual bite point is in the sim. I probably need to tweak this a little bit more to be 100% happy with it, but yeah, it just makes it more realistic from a driving point of view. Again, other people will explain that in more detail than me probably. The throttle is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much as I set it up out the box. You'll see actually, I'll stick a photo in of the pedals here, and you can see where I've mounted various things in various holes, very much as it was in the initial installation video. Again, the link up in the top right, and in the description. So the big setting obviously for tuning the pedals to the car is the brakes. And here, I don't know if you can quite see that on the screen, but I've gone for a maximum load of 65 kilograms, which is just lighter than my body weight. And again, that gives me a good solid, enough of a feel. Again, again, having never driven the car, but there's no aero in these cars, so you don't need the 100 plus kilograms. I don't think that they have in modern Formula One. That wouldn't be realistic. But you know, you do have to stamp on the brake to slow it down, because there's a lot of movement, and it would have just been, I've not looked into what type of brakes etc. they actually had in those days, but I'm kind of assuming it would be very, you know, rudimentary braking systems, much like I had in the Formula Ford, but obviously going faster with more tyres, so you have to press harder to stop. So yeah, I thought 65 gave me a good feel, and it feels like I'm having to lean on it. At the end of a long straight, you do have to put a lot of effort into hammering the brake pedal. The rubber stack, which you'll see again on the picture, is the brake curve F. If you go into the Heusinkveld's instruction manual, you can change the stack of rubbers on the pedal to give you different feels in the brake. And yeah, I thought the F was a good. You know, it's quite stiff, much stiffer than obviously a road car. Again, very similar, maybe slightly stiffer. Very similar, I think, to what the Formula Ford was. Again, it just gave me a good feel in the pedal, and something that makes me feel like I'm actually driving one of these cars. So yeah, that's where we are with the pedals. The next thing, the shifter itself, you can see down here. Again, not really changed much from the tweaks that we made when we installed it. It's a fantastic bit of kit, the shifter. It really does give you that feel of changing gear. It's so solid and robust. You can, again, I think I've said a few times, it's so satisfying cranking through the gears on this going down the straight, and then coming into the corners, blipping the throttle and down changes. It's a really satisfying thing to drive. So yeah, that's that. One last thing to mention actually, that I should have said at the start when we were talking about the steering wheel. I'll put a little image up here to show what I'm talking about, but obviously there's no buttons on the steering wheel itself. So for various functions that you need to have when you're driving, I've coded some buttons on my button boxes. So on the left hand side here, right down at the bottom, we have the brake bias knob, so you can turn that clockwise to send the bias to the rear, turn it right sends it rear, that's how I remember it from the Formula Ford days, and turning it left will put bias to the front. Again, same position, same type of mechanism as I had in the Formula Ford. The other buttons on the left hand side here are for navigating the wee black box you get in iRacing. So again, the black box, you can cycle through, you know, positions of people around about you, lap times, pit strategies, etc. And one of the buttons I've mapped for my visor tear off button, because you do get dirt in your visor now and again. You need to clear it off, especially in the 40 odd minute races that we do. On the right hand side, the bottom knob is used for setting things in the black box. So again, just really the sim interaction, and then I'm not using the top knob for anything. Obviously, we still have the starter button and ignition switch in the top left that we use as well. So yeah, that is pretty much it for how we set the sim up. Hopefully that was useful. Let's finish that with a little caveat and get the excuses in early before I start driving. Is that I've gone about this and I'm approaching this championship from the point of view of I want to feel as much as possible that I'm actually driving a 1967 F1 car. It's not going to be the fastest way to drive it in the sim. I'll be frank up front. If I wanted to be as competitive as possible, I'd be using flappy paddle gears, not the 8-shifter. I probably wouldn't have near as much force in the steering wheel, because there are times when, with the best will in the world, I'm not strong enough to turn the steering wheel, especially if if you're really in a highly banked situation or you're going into a hill, and the car just wants to put, and you've really got to wrestle it into the apex, and then sometimes to catch it, you've just got to let the steering wheel catch itself, because I'm not quite strong enough at the moment to catch some of these things. Need to do more weights. But again, I feel like that's what it would be like if I actually sat in one of these things. I would be struggling physically. And it makes you sweat and it makes you tired. And by the end of a 40-minute race distance, as I've obviously not done any with other cars yet, but I've done some on my own, it's knackering. I really feel like I've driven it, and my shoulders and my forearms are stinging from the sheer physical effort it takes to drive it. So, obviously that type of immersion is going to slow me down. So, excuses and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, I'm going about this championship like I want to feel like I'm driving it, not feel like I'm just driving a computer game, if you like. That was the whole point of all this kit. And if I'm not winning races, which I don't expect to be, because the guys at the front are obviously pros in this car, it's not a big deal. I'm just looking forward to driving it with others and hopefully surviving. So excuses out the way first. If I'm not that fast, that's because I'm trying to do it realistically. But obviously I'll be trying my best as well. Now, I want to be as competitive as possible, but feel like I'm earning it rather than cutting any corners in the sim. And I'll be starting, with the actual clutch pedal and trying to get it off the line without stalling. You do get setups that you can have dual clutches like they have on F1 cars nowadays. It makes it easier to launch the car. Or I think you can use the auto. I think you can do something in the sim where you put an anti-stall clutch on. If you just hold the brake down and then hold the throttle down at the same time and then just let go of the brake, when the lights go green, the car will start beautifully. But again, that's not realistic, and I don't want to do things unrealistically. There we go. One last thing before we go is I will show you the setup I have in place for the stream, as to how you can watch along and what it'll look like when you're watching along on the live stream races that we do on Thursday nights, 7:30 Thursday night, remember. That'll take us to the end. So I'll catch you in a bit on the stream. Right folks, here we are in the stream itself. Hopefully you can see that okay. If I get out of the way a little bit, you'll see what I see. Obviously I'm just in jeans and a t-shirt at the moment. I probably won't race in jeans because it's going to get very hot in here during a 40-minute race, so I'll probably go for shorts or something. But so this is what the stream looks like in the setup. Obviously the main window here is just a camera over my shoulder here. You can see exactly what I see on the screen. Which is good. It's much better than, if you remember, any of you that watched the previous streams, you'll remember it was the on-screen image and then we had the camera up there showing my face at the same time, and it was okay, but it was quite a narrow image and you couldn't really see me. And I didn't have the steering wheel on screen because it would show me two steering wheels, so I prefer this. Now you're actually looking at what I look at. So here's my actual steering wheel in the car. You can see the dashboard, the wheels, you can see the right hand mirror. I think you probably can't see the left hand. No, you can't see the left hand mirror, but it is there. Look, it is there. And that's it. We're sitting here in the pit lane at Knockhill, as you might have noticed, somewhere I'm very familiar with. So anyway, to explain the stream window a little bit, what we have is up here, we have the current position leaderboard type thing. So it shows me at the moment, there's nobody else on track, but the line above and the line below will show the driver in front of me, the driver behind me, the position, first of all, the car number, obviously their name, their iRating and license, or license and iRating, sorry, in iRacing. So that'll show you how good they are basically, and you'll get mine in there as well, so you can see if they're ranked above or below me. The last lap time they did, and for me a delta, so that number at the moment is going to be on my current lap if I'm up or down, and the box will change from red to green, green means I'm up on my current lap time or faster than my current, or my previous lap, sorry, and red means I'm slower, and the gap will be showing the numbers. Above and below that, the gap will be the gap ahead and behind the driver ahead is, and the driver behind, so you can see they are live what kind of gap I've got, if any, to the car behind and the car in front. My best lap time will be shown at the top there, so you can keep a track of how my pace is through the race, and if you'll probably hear my what do you call them? My crew chief giving me updates on the leaders' times, so I'll see how far off the pace I am. Here we have the track map, which obviously is handy. You can see I'm going to be a red dot. Again, there's nobody else showing at the moment because we're just in a test session, but I'll be the red dot. Everyone else, I believe, are white dots, and their position will be shown there as well. On top of the dot, the number should show up. And then over this side, right along, you've got my pedal cam, which so you can see my feet down there, but you can also see in detail over here the feet of the pedals. So obviously we've got throttle, brake, and clutch. All good. So along the bottom here we have my current position, getting shown 0, whereas in the practice session, there you go. And below that, laps. So the lap we're on, and the amount of laps in the race. Obviously at the moment, infinity laps. Next in we have the data traces. So these are the traces themselves, and then these are the pedal inputs. So green being the throttle pedal, so if I press your throttle, you can see that line in the middle moving up and down. The brake won't move because we're not moving at the moment, but trust me, it does the same thing. And the clutch, you'll see the blue line. Blue line's difficult to see, but yeah, you can see it going up and down. The grey line is the steering. So if we steer one way, you'll see it go down the way. If we steer the other way, see the other way, and you can see my wheels moving as well. Obviously, it's the steering wheel. Next to that, calm down, steering wheel. Next to that, we have the current gear. So I presume if I put it in first, yeah, there we go. Second, third, fourth, and fifth. I love a little. I didn't actually plan this, but because of the way things are mounted in the rig, when I change gear, the camera shakes a bit, which makes me laugh. It's quite realistic because in old F1 footage, not this old, they didn't have onboard cameras really in these days. But yeah, you see them changing gear and you see the camera shake like that. So I quite like that effect. It's an unintentional added realism to the onboard footage. And then right across here where my head is, the session is just some info. So what type of session it is, whether it's testing at the moment, qualifying a race. Below that, the strength of field. So again, the race situation, I suppose in testing as well, it should tell you how strong the field is on average. Again, the higher the number, the stronger, the higher the iRating. And at the bottom, we have my incident points. So again, for those of you not familiar with iRacing, basically, you get incident points against you for doing bad stuff, like going off track or crashing or hitting somebody else, and you get a certain amount of incident points you can get disqualified. So you'll see there's a 0x, so I've got no incident points at the moment because I've not moved anywhere out of, again, infinity because we're in practice, but again, that'll say, I think it's 16 is the anyway, whatever the amount is before you get disqualified, it'll come up there. So yeah, that is the layout of the stream, and I very much look forward to seeing you all in this layout for an actual race in 1 week's time, which will be fun. I can't wait. Thanks for watching, folks. Remember to give us a like and a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on track in a week's time. Bye.